Lily had always been a quiet girl. She preferred the company of books over people, and the thought of attention made her uncomfortable. For as long as she could remember, she'd struggled with her appearance. She wasn't overweight or unattractive, but something about her made her feel like she didn't belong. It wasn't that anyone had said anything hurtful, it was just the way she felt in the world. She often wondered why she was so different from everyone else. Her friends were confident, social, and always seemed to know the right thing to say. Meanwhile, Lily would hide behind her long hair, hoping no one noticed her. She was used to being in the background, never at the center of attention. There were times when she wondered what it would feel like to be bold, to not worry about every little thing people might think of her. But one thing had always been her biggest secret: her body. There was a problem that she had been hiding for years, and it made her feel ashamed every time she looked in the mirror. It wasn't something anyone could see at first glance, but it affected how she saw herself. She knew deep down that something needed to change. She couldn't keep hiding forever. It wasn't just about physical appearance, it was about her self-worth, about finally feeling like she could walk into a room without feeling invisible. Lily had been thinking about it for months, but it took a long time to finally make a decision. She needed to do something about it. It was a private matter, something that only she could address. After searching for answers, she had finally decided to schedule a private surgery. It wasn't something she took lightly, but it felt like the right choice. Maybe, just maybe, this would help her feel like she was truly herself for the first time. The decision wasn't easy. Lily was nervous. She'd never had surgery before, and the thought of going under the knife terrified her. But she reminded herself that she had to face her fears if she wanted to take control of her life. For too long, she had let her insecurities define her. Now, she was taking a step toward changing that. Her heart raced as she made the call. The voice on the other end was calm and professional, guiding her through the process and explaining everything she needed to know. But when it came time to schedule the appointment, she hesitated. What if something went wrong? What if she wasn't prepared for the pain or the recovery? What if the surgery didn't give her the results she hoped for? In the end, she knew there was no turning back. This was something she had to do for herself. The surgery would be her chance to start fresh. But there was still a nagging feeling in the back of her mind. Could she really go through with it? The day of the appointment arrived faster than Lily expected. She woke up early, her stomach in knots. She tried to distract herself, but her mind kept going back to the surgery. The thought of someone seeing her body, of making herself vulnerable to a stranger, sent waves of anxiety through her. But she pushed those thoughts aside. This was the moment she had been waiting for. It was time to make a change. Lily had arranged for the surgery to be done privately, in a well-known clinic where no one would know her. She knew this was the best option to ensure she could heal without anyone watching or asking questions. This was her moment, her chance to finally do something that would make her feel better about herself. As she walked into the clinic, her hands trembled. The receptionist greeted her with a smile, but Lily could barely return it. She tried to keep her emotions in check, but everything felt overwhelming. She took a seat in the waiting area and tried to steady her breathing. Minutes later, a nurse called her name. Lily stood up, her legs feeling weak as she followed the nurse down a hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last. She passed other patients sitting in their own waiting rooms, all of them seemingly calm, but Lily couldn't help but feel like she was doing something wrong. She wondered if anyone else had ever felt this way before. The nurse led her into a small examination room, where Lily was asked to change into a hospital gown. She took a deep breath and changed quickly, trying not to think about how exposed she felt. As she sat on the bed, waiting for the doctor, she couldn't help but feel like this was the biggest decision of her life. Would everything be different after today? After a few moments, the door opened, and a young man walked in. He had short, dark hair and a confident stride. His eyes were kind, but there was a certain professionalism about him that made Lily feel both comforted and nervous at the same time. "Hello, Lily," he said, offering a warm smile. "I'm Dr. Ethan Montgomery. I'll be taking care of you today." Lily nodded, trying to force herself to smile back. She felt a sudden wave of emotion hit her chest. There was something about his presence that made her feel both vulnerable and safe. She couldn't explain why, but she found herself calming down as he spoke. Dr. Montgomery explained the procedure in simple terms, making sure Lily understood everything. He answered her questions with patience, never once rushing her. His voice was soothing, and Lily felt a sense of relief wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she wasn't alone in her journey. As the conversation continued, she realized that this surgery, while scary, was also a turning point in her life. It wasn't just about changing her body, it was about taking control of her story. She could already feel herself becoming a little bolder, a little more confident in her decision. "Are you ready, Lily?" Dr. Montgomery asked, his voice breaking through her thoughts. She took one last deep breath. This was it. She nodded, her heart racing with both fear and excitement. For the first time in her life, she was doing something for herself, something that would change her forever. Lily's heart raced as she lay on the hospital bed, the cool sheets against her skin. The room was quiet, and the soft hum of medical equipment was the only sound that broke the stillness. She stared at the ceiling, trying to steady her breathing. In the moments before her surgery, everything felt surreal. It was a mixture of fear and anticipation, like standing at the edge of a cliff and knowing that jumping would change everything. She had met Dr. Montgomery only moments before, and there was something about him that made her feel both nervous and calm at the same time. He was young, in his early 30s, and had an air of confidence that made him seem almost untouchable. But when he spoke, his voice was warm, and his smile was genuine. He didn't rush her, didn't make her feel like just another patient. It was like he truly cared, and that made her feel both relieved and, if she was being honest with herself, more than a little overwhelmed. "Everything will be just fine," Dr. Montgomery had said earlier. His words were calm, but Lily couldn't help but feel the tension in her stomach. The thought of someone else performing surgery on her body, no matter how skilled they were, still made her anxious. As she lay there, her thoughts swirled. She had never been one to ask for help, never been the type to reach out for anything, let alone something as personal as surgery. But here she was, deciding to take control of her life, to make a change. And in that moment, she realized that the decision to have this surgery wasn't just about her appearance. It was about her confidence, her ability to look at herself and finally feel comfortable in her own skin. The door to the room opened, and Lily's thoughts were interrupted. She turned her head, and there stood Dr. Montgomery, now wearing his surgical scrubs, looking even more professional than before. His face was serious, but there was a kindness in his eyes that softened his expression. "Are you feeling okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. Lily nodded, though the knot in her stomach didn't go away. She was still nervous, still unsure of what to expect. She had only ever read about surgeries in books or seen them on TV. But now, this was her reality, and it felt so different from what she had imagined. "I'm a little nervous," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. She hadn't expected to be this honest, but there was something about Dr. Montgomery that made her feel safe enough to speak the truth. Dr. Montgomery smiled reassuringly and walked over to her side. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a simple gesture that somehow brought her comfort. "It's completely normal to feel that way. But I'm here with you, every step of the way. We'll take good care of you." His words, though simple, made her feel as though she wasn't alone. That was something Lily had never experienced before. She had always dealt with everything on her own, keeping her emotions bottled up. But here, in this moment, she could let go of that fear and trust him. "Thank you," Lily said softly, her voice breaking slightly. She didn't know why, but she felt a wave of gratitude for this man, this stranger who was about to change her life. It wasn't just the surgery, she realized now that it was also the way he had treated her from the moment they met. Dr. Montgomery had a way of making her feel seen, something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Dr. Montgomery didn't say anything at first. He simply gave her a reassuring smile and nodded. "I'll be right here when you wake up. Just try to relax now. You're in good hands." Before Lily could respond, the nurse came in to prepare her for the procedure. She was told that they would give her something to help her relax, and before she knew it, Lily's eyes grew heavy. The last thing she remembered was Dr. Montgomery's comforting presence and his kind words. When Lily awoke, the soft beeping of the machines and the quiet hum of the room greeted her. She blinked, slowly coming to her senses. It took a moment for her to realize where she was and what had just happened. Her mind felt foggy, but she could sense that everything had gone well. There was no pain, only a dull sensation where the surgery had taken place. She was relieved. As her eyes adjusted, she noticed Dr. Montgomery standing at her side. He was looking down at a chart, but when he saw her stir, he smiled, that same warmth in his expression. "Hey, how are you feeling?" Lily blinked a few times, surprised at how calm she felt. I think I'm okay," she said softly, her voice still groggy. "Did everything go all right?" "Perfectly," Dr. Montgomery replied, looking pleased. "You did great. The surgery went smoothly, and you're in good shape. Now, we'll give you a little time to rest before we talk more about the next steps." Lily nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. It was over. The decision, the surgery, it was all behind her now. But there was something else she hadn't expected. The more time she spent with Dr. Montgomery, the more she found herself admiring him. It wasn't just his skills as a doctor, it was his kindness, the way he made her feel like she mattered. For someone who had always felt invisible, this was something entirely new. As the days passed, Lily continued her recovery. Dr. Montgomery visited her every day, checking in on her progress and making sure she was comfortable. Every time he spoke to her, Lily couldn't help but feel drawn to him. He wasn't just the doctor who had performed her surgery, he was someone who had made her feel valued, someone who saw her for who she truly was. One afternoon, after a checkup, Dr. Montgomery sat down next to her bed. "How are you feeling today?" he asked, his voice low and comforting. "I feel better," Lily replied, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I didn't expect to feel so good so soon." "That's a good sign," he said, his eyes meeting hers. "It means you're healing well. I'm glad to see you doing so well." Lily looked down at her hands, unsure of how to continue the conversation. She didn't know how to say what was on her mind, but she couldn't deny the growing feelings she had for this man. It wasn't just gratitude anymore, it was something deeper. Something that made her heart race every time he spoke to her. The days following the surgery passed by slowly for Lily. She spent most of her time resting in the quiet comfort of her private room, surrounded by soft pillows and the gentle hum of the hospital. While her body healed, her mind continued to race with thoughts of the future. It wasn't just about the physical recovery anymore, it was about what came next. How would she feel when she left this place? Would she finally feel good about herself, or was there still something missing? Each time Dr. Montgomery came to check on her, it was like a small wave of comfort washed over her. He would walk into the room with that warm smile of his, checking on her progress, offering encouragement, and reminding her to take it easy. But each time, she found herself noticing him more. It wasn't just the way he took care of her, it was the way he looked at her, the way he made her feel like she was more than just a patient. Lily couldn't help but think about how much she had changed since meeting him. Before the surgery, she had never imagined that something like this could happen. She had never expected to feel so noticed, so cared for, by someone who wasn't even a close friend. And yet, Dr. Montgomery had somehow become more than just a doctor. There was something about the way he spoke to her, listened to her, that made her feel like she mattered. But Lily wasn't foolish. She knew the boundaries between a doctor and a patient, and she was careful not to let her feelings get ahead of her. She tried to focus on her recovery, telling herself that her health and healing were the most important things. Still, the emotions she felt every time Dr. Montgomery spoke to her couldn't be ignored. She was starting to look forward to his visits, even though she was hesitant to admit why. One afternoon, after he finished his usual checkup, Dr. Montgomery sat down beside her bed. The room was quiet, with only the soft rustle of the curtains in the breeze. Lily was sitting up slightly, her hands resting on her lap, trying to ignore the thoughts swirling in her head. "How are you feeling today?" he asked, looking at her with concern. His gaze was warm, almost as if he were genuinely interested in how she was doing, not just as a doctor, but as a person. Lily smiled softly, though she felt her cheeks flush. "I'm feeling better. It's a little strange, though," she admitted. "I thought I would feel different. I thought the surgery would change more than just my body." Dr. Montgomery nodded, understanding. "It's normal to feel that way. Surgery can change a lot of things physically, but also emotionally. It takes time to adjust to the new you. And sometimes, that means coming to terms with things inside as well as outside." Lily looked at him, trying to read his expression. There was a depth to his words, and it made her wonder if he understood more about her than she realized. It wasn't just about the surgery for her. It was about something much deeper, something she had struggled with for years. "I don't know why I feel so unsure," Lily confessed, her voice quiet. "I thought that after the surgery, I would feel better about myself, but I still feel like there's something missing." Dr. Montgomery's eyes softened. "You've taken an incredible step by doing this for yourself, Lily. But remember, change doesn't happen all at once. It's a journey, not just a destination. You're already on the right path, and sometimes, it just takes time for everything to fall into place." Lily felt a small sense of comfort at his words. He had a way of making things feel simpler, even when they seemed so complicated. She was starting to believe that maybe this wasn't just about the surgery, after all. Maybe it was about finding the courage to embrace change both inside and out. But even as she appreciated his kind words, there was still that nagging feeling inside her. Was she only feeling this way because of the surgery, or was it something more? She found herself thinking about Dr. Montgomery more often than she cared to admit. The way he treated her, the way he seemed to understand her without her saying much at all, it was a connection she hadn't expected. And it made her wonder if it was something he felt, too. That evening, as Lily lay in bed, she found herself replaying the moments they'd shared. The way he had smiled at her, how he made sure she was comfortable even when she didn't ask for it. She knew she was healing physically, but emotionally, she felt a mix of emotions that were hard to untangle. Part of her wanted to distance herself from these feelings, but another part couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to have more than just a doctor-patient relationship with Dr. Montgomery. The next morning, Dr. Montgomery came in to check on her again. Lily had been awake for a while, staring out the window, watching the sunlight filter through the trees. She hadn't slept well the night before, her mind too busy with unanswered questions. But now, seeing him walk through the door with that familiar smile, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. "Good morning, Lily," he greeted her, his voice always calm and reassuring. "Good morning," she replied, her heart beating a little faster than usual. "How are you feeling today, he asked, sitting beside her again. I'm okay, she said. Just thinking. Dr. Montgomery raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. About what? Lily hesitated, unsure if she should open up. She had never been one to share her feelings easily, but something about Dr. Montgomery made her want to trust him. She wanted to be open, even if she wasn't sure how. About everything, she said quietly. The surgery, the changes, and I guess about me. I thought I would feel more confident, but I don't know. I just feel different. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. Dr. Montgomery studied her for a moment, then spoke gently. It's okay to feel unsure. You've made a huge change, and that can take time to fully process. But trust me, Lily, you're on the right path. You're doing something amazing for yourself, and that's something to be proud of. Lily smiled softly, feeling a small weight lift from her chest. She wasn't completely sure of what her future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she could take things one step at a time. And with Dr. Montgomery's support, she might just find the strength to face whatever came next. The morning of the surgery felt different. It wasn't the usual feeling of anxiety Lily had expected. There was a calmness to her that surprised her. The fear was still there, lingering at the back of her mind, but something else had taken its place: hope. Hope that this surgery would bring the change she had always dreamed of, not just for her body, but for her life as a whole. For once, she wasn't focusing on the unknowns or the fear of what could go wrong. She was looking forward to the future, a future where she felt comfortable in her own skin. The sun had barely risen when Lily woke up in her room, the soft light filtering through the curtains. The quiet was soothing, and she found herself taking a few moments to breathe deeply, preparing herself for the day ahead. Today wasn't just about the surgery, it was about taking control of her life. It was about facing her insecurities head-on and doing something that would change her forever. She had no idea what the outcome would be, but she knew this was her moment. After a quick breakfast, Lily changed into the hospital gown, the fabric cool against her skin. She tried not to think too much about what was coming. Instead, she focused on the strength she had built up over the past few days. She had made it this far, and she was ready to take the next step. She wasn't going to let fear control her anymore. A nurse came in shortly after, offering her a reassuring smile. "We'll be taking you to the operating room soon. Are you ready?" Lily nodded, her heart fluttering in her chest. She wasn't sure if she was truly ready, but there was no turning back now. This was it. She followed the nurse down the hallway, her steps feeling heavy despite the fact that she was walking towards something she knew she needed to do. The operating room was cold, the lights bright and sterile. Lily's eyes flitted nervously over the equipment, the sounds of the machines clicking and buzzing in the background. She had never been in a room like this before, and everything felt so unfamiliar. Her mind raced, but then she felt a warm hand on her shoulder, pulling her focus back to the present. It was Dr. Montgomery. "Lily," he said softly, his voice gentle yet confident, "I'm here. Everything's going to be all right." His words were simple, but they had a way of calming her. She looked up at him, and for the first time since arriving, she felt a sense of trust settle inside her. This man, who had become more than just a doctor in her mind, was here, and he believed in her. He had seen her at her most vulnerable and had never once made her feel anything less than capable. "Thank you," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. Dr. Montgomery smiled, his eyes filled with understanding. "You've already taken the hardest step by being here. Now, let's get this done so you can start feeling better." As the nurse helped her onto the operating table, Lily's breath caught in her throat. This was the moment she had been preparing for. She was about to let go of all the fear and uncertainty that had held her back for so long. She was giving herself the chance to start fresh, to become the person she had always wanted to be. A calming force was inserted into her arm, and the nurse spoke to her in soothing tones, explaining that the anesthesia would start soon. As her eyes grew heavy, Lily felt herself drifting, the pressure of the world slowly fading away. The last thing she remembered was the sound of Dr. Montgomery's voice, steady and reassuring. "Rest now, Lily," he said. "You're in good hands." Lily woke up in the recovery room, the familiar hum of machines greeting her ears. She blinked a few times, trying to shake off the fog of the anesthesia. For a moment, everything felt distant and blurry, but then she remembered where she was and what had just happened. The surgery. It was over. Her eyes fluttered open, and she saw Dr. Montgomery standing beside her, his face soft with concern. "Hey there, Lily," he greeted, his voice warm. "How are you feeling?" Lily tried to sit up but was immediately aware of the bandages wrapped around her. She felt a slight ache where the surgery had taken place, but it wasn't unbearable. It was a small price to pay for what she had just done. "I'm okay," she said, her voice shaky but filled with relief. "It's over, right?" Dr. Montgomery smiled, nodding. "It's over. And everything went perfectly. You did great." Lily's heart lifted at his words. She had done it. She had faced her fear, and now she was on the other side. The weight of the unknown had lifted, and all she could feel was a sense of accomplishment. "I'm glad it's over," Lily said, her voice quieter now. "I was so nervous." "You're not alone," Dr. Montgomery replied. "Anyone would be nervous before a surgery like that. But you were brave, and now you're going to feel so much better." Lily felt a smile tug at the corners of her mouth. She could hardly believe it. She had done it. She had taken control of her life, and now things were going to change. There was still a long road ahead, but she was ready for it. For the first time in a long time, Lily felt hopeful about the future. As Dr. Montgomery checked her vitals and made sure she was comfortable, Lily found herself thinking about how much this moment meant to her. She had expected the surgery to be the hardest part, but now she realized that facing her own fears and insecurities had been even harder. The surgery had been a physical change, but the emotional journey was something she was just beginning to understand. "Thank you," Lily said, her voice filled with gratitude. "For everything." Dr. Montgomery looked at her with a small smile. "You don't need to thank me, Lily. You did all the hard work. I'm just here to help you along the way." As she lay back, feeling the calmness settle over her, Lily realized something: this was just the beginning. She had taken the first step, and there was no going back. Whatever came next, she was ready for it. And maybe, just maybe, she was finally ready to embrace the person she had always wanted to be. The days after the surgery passed slowly, but Lily wasn't bothered by it. She had expected pain, discomfort, and a long, difficult recovery. But instead, the process felt more like a gentle wave, gradual and steady. Her body ached a little, but it wasn't unbearable. And with each passing day, the swelling and discomfort faded. But what surprised her the most was how much clearer her mind felt. She wasn't just recovering physically, she was beginning to recover emotionally, too. Lily spent her days resting, reading, and trying to relax. For once, she wasn't thinking about how she looked or what others might think of her. She was focused on herself. She felt a quiet sense of pride in her decision. For years, she had hidden her insecurities, buried them deep within, but now, she had made the choice to confront them. And it felt like a weight had been lifted. But, of course, it wasn't all easy. There were moments when her mind wandered, and she found herself doubting her decision. Was she really doing this for herself? Or was it because of the attention she had started to receive from others? She couldn't help but wonder if her actions were the result of her need for validation. But then she would remember Dr. Montgomery's words, and those doubts would slowly fade away. She wasn't doing this for anyone else. She was doing it for her own peace of mind. It was one afternoon, about a week after the surgery, that Lily sat up in bed, looking out the window at the clear blue sky. The sun was shining, and for the first time in a long time, she felt truly at ease. Her body still had a few bruises, but the swelling was nearly gone. More than that, she felt different on the inside. It was as if she was no longer weighed down by the uncertainty that had plagued her for so long. Feeling better today? Dr. Montgomery's voice broke her thoughts. She turned to see him standing in the doorway, his warm smile instantly putting her at ease. I am, she replied, her voice still soft from the recovery. I feel lighter. Like I'm finally letting go of something I've been carrying around for years. He stepped inside the room, checking her chart and making sure she was comfortable. That's good to hear. It's amazing how much our mind and body are connected. When you take care of yourself physically, it often helps you heal emotionally, too. Lily smiled, looking at him. She hadn't expected to feel this way after the surgery. She had anticipated physical recovery, but the emotional part was something she hadn't anticipated. The feeling of letting go of her insecurities and fears was almost as powerful as the change she had made to her body. As Dr. Montgomery checked her vitals and made sure she was healing well, Lily felt herself becoming more aware of his presence. He had been kind to her from the moment they met, but there was something deeper in the way he interacted with her now. She wasn't just a patient anymore. She was someone he genuinely cared about. And she realized, as she sat there looking at him, that the way she felt about him had changed, too. She had always admired his professionalism, but now, she saw him in a new light. It wasn't just the way he took care of her physically, it was the way he made her feel emotionally. He was gentle, patient, and understanding, but more than that, he made her feel seen. He made her feel like she wasn't invisible, and that was a feeling Lily had never experienced before. Thank you, Dr. Montgomery, she said, her voice quiet but sincere. For everything. You've really helped me more than you know. Dr. Montgomery paused for a moment, his expression softening. You don't have to thank me, Lily. You did the hard part. You made the decision to take control of your life, and that's the most important thing. Lily looked down at her hands, trying to keep her emotions in check. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear those words. She had always been the kind of person to keep everything to herself, to hide her vulnerabilities. But now, she was learning to open up, to trust, and to accept the changes happening inside her. There's still so much I'm learning, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought the surgery would fix everything, but it's not just about how I look. It's about how I see myself, how I let go of all the things that held me back for so long. Dr. Montgomery nodded, his eyes thoughtful. That's the hardest part. The surgery can change how you look, but real change starts with how you feel about yourself. And you've already started that process. That's why it's so important to take the time to heal, to truly embrace the change. Lily nodded, feeling a small but significant shift inside her. She had spent so many years thinking that if she could just change something on the outside, everything else would fall into place. But she was beginning to understand that the real change had to come from within. As Dr. Montgomery checked her progress one more time and prepared to leave, Lily found herself thinking about how much her life had changed in such a short period of time. She had started this journey not knowing what to expect, but now, she was beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. She wasn't just recovering from surgery, she was recovering from years of self-doubt and insecurity. As the door closed behind him, Lily sat back in her bed, her thoughts drifting once again. She was still on her journey, and she knew there would be bumps along the way. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was heading in the right direction. She was on her way to becoming the person she had always wanted to be, not because of how she looked, but because she was finally starting to love who she was, inside and out. The days passed in a gentle blur. Lily's body continued to heal, and with each passing day, she felt more like herself. The physical changes she had hoped for were happening, but it was the emotional changes that surprised her the most. She had started this journey thinking the surgery would fix everything, but now, she was realizing that the real transformation had come from within. Her confidence was growing. She found herself standing a little taller, speaking a little louder, and even smiling more freely. The quiet, shy girl she had always been was slowly fading away, replaced by someone who was beginning to truly believe in herself. She could look in the mirror now without feeling ashamed of what she saw. She could walk into a room without wanting to hide in the corner. But there was still one thing she hadn't figured out: her feelings for Dr. Montgomery. It had started so simply. He was her doctor, and she was his patient. But as the days went on, those boundaries had become blurry. She had felt safe around him, comfortable in a way she had never felt before. His kindness, his patience, the way he listened to her, it had all made her feel seen, understood. And now, there was something more. She couldn't deny it anymore. Lily found herself thinking about him more often than she should. The way he smiled at her, the way his voice had a soothing effect on her, how his eyes always seemed to look at her with such care, these thoughts were starting to fill her mind at all hours of the day. She knew it wasn't just gratitude for the surgery anymore. It was something deeper. She had developed feelings for him. But how could she tell him? He was her doctor. There were rules, boundaries that couldn't be crossed. And yet, the pull she felt toward him was undeniable. It was starting to drive her crazy. One evening, after a routine checkup, Dr. Montgomery sat down beside her, just like he always did. He asked her how she was feeling, his voice warm and calming as always. Lily had learned to appreciate his presence. It was comforting, but tonight, it also felt different. Better, she said with a soft smile. I think I'm almost fully healed. That's great to hear, Dr. Montgomery replied. He glanced at her chart, but Lily could see that his attention was on her. He had this way of making her feel like she was the most important person in the room, even when he was busy with his work. Lily felt the tension in her chest. This was it. This was the moment she had been avoiding. Her heart was pounding in her chest, and her palms felt clammy. She had to tell him. It wasn't just about the surgery anymore. It was about how she felt about him. Taking a deep breath, Lily looked down at her hands before speaking. Dr. Montgomery, she began, her voice barely above a whisper, I need to tell you something. He stopped what he was doing and turned his full attention to her, his gaze soft. What is it, Lily? She looked up at him, meeting his eyes for the first time, feeling a rush of emotions flood her chest. I've been thinking a lot about everything, and about you, she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. I never expected to feel this way, but I've developed feelings for you. There, she had said it. The words hung in the air between them, and Lily immediately regretted speaking. She could see the surprise in Dr. Montgomery's eyes, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. But then, his expression softened, and he looked at her with understanding, not judgment. Lily, he said, his voice gentle, I care about you. I've always cared about your well-being. But I need you to understand that I'm your doctor, and we have professional boundaries for a reason. Lily's heart sank. Of course, she had known this. She had expected it. He was her doctor, and those lines couldn't be crossed. She felt embarrassed, like she had said something she shouldn't have. She quickly looked away, her face flushing. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice full of regret. I didn't mean to make things awkward. Dr. Montgomery reached out, placing a hand on hers. His touch was warm and reassuring. "You don't have to apologize, Lily. I'm glad you're being honest with me. But I want to make sure you understand that this is about you, about your healing journey. You're not just a patient to me. I genuinely care about your health and your happiness. And if you ever need someone to talk to, I'll be here." Lily's heart beat a little faster at his words, but she still couldn't shake the feeling that she had crossed a line. She wasn't expecting anything more than what he had said, but hearing him acknowledge her feelings made her feel both better and worse at the same time. "I understand," she said softly. I didn't want to hide how I feel." "I get that," he replied, his voice warm and sincere. "And you don't have to hide anything from me. But I want you to focus on yourself right now. That's what's most important. You've made so much progress, and I'm proud of you for that." Lily nodded, feeling a small weight lift from her chest. It wasn't the confession she had imagined, but it was enough. She didn't need him to return her feelings. She just needed him to understand, and in that moment, he did. As he finished up his checkup and prepared to leave, Dr. Montgomery gave her a kind smile. "You're doing great, Lily. Keep focusing on yourself. The rest will fall into place." "Thank you," Lily said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I will." As he left the room, Lily sat there, her thoughts still racing. She had been honest, and though it wasn't the response she had hoped for, she was glad to have spoken her truth. She wasn't sure what would happen next, but for the first time in a long time, she felt at peace with herself. She was still on her journey, still healing physically and emotionally. And maybe, just maybe, that was all she needed to focus on for now. Lily sat in the quiet of her room, the soft light of the afternoon filtering through the curtains. It had been a few weeks since the conversation with Dr. Montgomery, and while her feelings for him hadn't disappeared, she was starting to understand them better. She had told him how she felt, and he had listened, offering her understanding and kindness in return. It wasn't the romantic ending she had secretly hoped for, but it was enough. She had learned something important from the experience. Honesty with herself and others was more powerful than any fleeting desire for something that couldn't be. Her journey hadn't been just about the surgery. It had been about growing, about facing her fears and insecurities head-on. Every day, Lily saw the changes in herself, not just the physical ones, but the emotional and mental shifts as well. She wasn't the same person who had walked into Dr. Montgomery's office months ago. She was stronger, more confident, and more at peace with who she was. And it felt like a whole new world had opened up to her. Dr. Montgomery had continued to check on her regularly, always with his calm, reassuring presence. His visits had become less frequent as she recovered, but they still brought a sense of comfort to Lily. She had come to appreciate the way he made her feel important, the way he made her realize her own worth. She didn't need him to be in love with her, she didn't need anyone to validate her anymore. What mattered was that she had found her own sense of confidence. One day, after a particularly long week of work and rest, Lily decided to take a walk in the nearby park. The weather was perfect, the air crisp and fresh, and the trees were beginning to show the first hints of autumn. She needed a break, a moment of peace to reflect on everything that had changed in her life. As she walked along the path, her mind wandered back to the surgery, to the conversations she had had with Dr. Montgomery, and to the emotions that had surfaced during those difficult moments. But as she walked, she also realized that she wasn't the same person who had entered that doctor's office so many weeks ago. She had faced her insecurities and taken steps toward healing. She had learned to embrace who she was and had gained the strength to move forward. It was as if, in that moment, she understood that this was her life now. She was no longer hiding, no longer shrinking away from who she was. She could look ahead with a sense of excitement, with the knowledge that she was capable of handling whatever came her way. Later that afternoon, Lily found herself at a small cafe in the heart of the city. She hadn't planned on stopping, but something about the cozy atmosphere called to her. She walked inside, her footsteps light as she found a seat by the window. She ordered a simple tea and stared out at the street, watching people go about their lives. For the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace. As she sipped her tea, her thoughts drifted to Dr. Montgomery again. She wasn't thinking about him in the same way as before. There were no more dreams of a future together, no more longing. Instead, she thought about how grateful she was for everything he had done for her. He had helped her, yes, but more importantly, he had shown her that she was worth the effort, worth the care, and worth the time. He had helped her see herself as more than just a shy, insecure girl. He had helped her find the courage to become the woman she was meant to be. Lily had thought that her journey was about changing her appearance, but now, she realized it had been about so much more. It was about finding the strength to face her fears and embrace her true self. It was about learning to trust not just others, but herself. She wasn't perfect, and she didn't expect to be. But she was learning to love herself, flaws and all. As the days went by, Lily continued to make progress. She had returned to her job, feeling more confident in her interactions with others. She found herself speaking up more, sharing her ideas, and standing tall. She realized that she didn't need to hide behind her insecurities anymore. She could be the person she had always wanted to be. And that felt more powerful than anything else. One evening, as she sat in her apartment, reflecting on how far she had come, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Dr. Montgomery. "Hey, Lily. I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. I hope you're feeling great. Don't forget to take it easy, but also keep pushing yourself forward. You've come a long way. I'm proud of you." Lily smiled as she read the message. She had expected him to send something like that, something kind, something encouraging. But as she stared at the screen, she realized that she was finally able to let go of the feelings she had for him. She appreciated him, yes, but she no longer needed him to define her worth. She was her own person now, and that was enough. She typed a quick reply, "Thanks so much, Dr. Montgomery. I'm doing well. I really appreciate everything you've done for me. You helped me more than you know." As she hit send, a feeling of peace settled over her. She was no longer the shy girl who had walked into his office months ago, unsure of herself and her future. She was stronger now, more confident, and ready to embrace whatever came next. Life was full of possibilities, and Lily was ready to take on the world, one step at a time. And as she looked out at the city, she realized that she didn't need anyone else's approval to be happy. She was enough. She always had been.